Parallel is in open beta. Referrals are back. And even better, Prime emissions are up and the Prime token itself is pumping. The time to jump in is now. What's up, gamers? I'm the Cobra Commander, Master Marcolian, Lancer Tank Lieutenant, and Orbital Strike Operator. On today's Freeroll, we're dropping Parallel-related alpha bombs. If you've checked out Parallel in the past, you've probably noted how expensive the cards can be. For example, my Marcolian deck is going to run you about 2 ETH if you were to purchase all 40 cards today. That's like $6,500. Not cheap. But I have some good news. We can get you into a viable Marcolian deck for under $200. I call it the minimum Marcolian. Better, more expensive cards will definitely improve your win rate, but the amount of Prime that you can win is the same, and everyone is capped at 5 wins per day. What does 5 wins per day in Parallel earn you? Well, it depends. There are several factors, but in this situation, if we assume that you just have this deck and that your TCG skills will land you somewhere in the gold to platinum range, which is very reasonable, then you're going to be able to earn about half a Prime per day, or roughly 15 Prime per month. At today's Prime price, that's about $375. Now, that price can and will change, but the trend is up, not down. And as of last night, this deck would cost you $182, plus a few fees if you don't have your crypto in the right place today. So about half a month of playing is going to cover your cost and get you into the black. Couple of important notes. I've been playing Web3 games since early 2021. A 2-week payback period is very good. But there's an important caveat. Prime gets paid out roughly every 4 to 6 weeks. Expect the next one to come about a month after this video publishes. So while it's only going to take you about 2 weeks to earn back the cost of the deck, you're going to be waiting more like a month and a half to actually receive that Prime. Now, let's take a look at the deck itself. Step 1 is picking up a Marcolian starter deck. I have linked it below. The Marcolian starter deck is a full 40/40 NFT deck. The more NFTs that you have in your deck, the more Prime that you will earn. And that rate is exponential, so you really do want to have the full 40 out of 40. Good news though, Parallel starter decks are only 0.01 Ethereum, or about $34 today. The cards are all on base, so the gas fees are very small. Here I have created a value breakdown for you. The cards that you see highlighted in green or blue are all cards that you're going to find in top players' decks. That's 24 out of the 40 cards highlighted green or blue. I've added the individual card value for each of those 24, and as you can see, the value of those cards that you're going to be playing, not just when you're new, but regularly, is about 70% higher than the cost of the entire starter deck. Solid deal. You also have 8 cards in the starter deck that are highlighted orange. These are honestly not great cards, but they're usable. I've kept about half of them in the minimum Marcolian deck, but you can save some more money up front if you play with all 8. That's going to leave you with 8 to 12 cards that you're going to want to replace. Those ones are highlighted red. Below that, I've got some inexpensive recommendations for you. Now, these aren't the only options, but they're my favorite options that have a reasonably low cost today. For sure, you want to get yourself 3 Fire Support Base. That card is excellent and key to just about every Marcolian deck. You're also going to want an extra Crack Shot and an extra PS8 launcher for sure. A lot of people play 3 of those cards, but they're a little bit more expensive because they're so popular. The last 7 after that are flexible. I recommend 3 Vengeful Allies, 2 Crew Bosses, 1 extra Iron Core Quartermaster, and if you can swing it, Mirielle, the Ghost of Mars. A few other considerations. Echoes are an option to fill out your deck. I have linked those below. We will discuss what echoes are in the future, but for today's purposes, note that they're the same card and they earn the same amount of Prime. You also don't need to purchase the replacement cards immediately. Some players will choose to earn some prime with their starter deck first, then use that prime to purchase the additional cards as they earn. This is going to be a bit slower, but it's much cheaper. A blend of the two approaches will work as well. Okay, we've got your deck ready. The final step is playing it well. And I've got lots and lots of videos on that subject, so make sure that you hit the subscribe button. But here are some basics to help get you started. Play aggressively. I'm going to say that again because I see this mistake a lot. Play aggressively. This starts with the mulligan phase. You're going to want to keep as many low-cost units as possible. Consider keeping a PS8 or a crack shot when you also have Marcolian Bannerman so that you can easily and quickly buff it. You have 5 damage effects that deal a total of 15 damage. You also have 2 Mantis Corsairs that deal 3 damage each, and 2 Iron Core Quartermasters that can let you replay your effects for another 6 damage. That's 27 in total, and you need 30 to win the game. It's safe to assume that in a typical game, you're going to be able to deal 9 to 12 damage in this way. So you're going to need about 18 to 21 more damage from attacks. We do this by flooding the board with small units. Remember that Longbow Personnel Carrier with Assault is really 3 units from 1 card. That plus 2 or 3 1-cost units in the first 3 turns gives you up to 6 units on the board at the start of turn 4. When that's the case, you can start playing cards like Fire Support Base, Crew Boss, and Lemieux himself to buff your entire board and get big swings of damage in the middle rounds. Opponents are going to do their best to remove your units and slow you down. Force them to attack your units, not the other way around. The minimum Marcolian deck has 2 really big cards for finishing games. The first one is your Paragon himself, Lemieux. He's an important part of the win condition. Lemieux is a 2/5 unit that by itself is not all that scary, but he comes with a huge muster or assault ability. Destroy any target unit, buff your board +1/+1 for the turn, and return any unit from your waist to your hand. Now, assault needs to be active to get all 3 abilities, otherwise you're just picking one of them. Lemieux is always available since he doesn't need to be drawn. I like to play him when at least 2 out of 3 of his abilities are getting serious value. I generally want my buffed Lemieux attack to get my opponent in range for lethal. Then I want to take a unit from the waist that can immediately deal more damage on the next turn. In this deck, that's going to be the Mantis Corsair dealing 3 damage on muster, or one of your buffing cards like Crew Boss or Fire Support Base to immediately buff your next attack. Then we have 1 legendary card in this deck, Mirielle, Ghost of Mars. Now, she's honestly not the best Marcolian legendary, but she is definitely the best value at under $50. For example, Lancer Tank is about $500. Mirielle can be tricky to play, but she is a big swing. For 3 energy, she's a 1/3 unit with a powerful muster ability. Select up to 3 other friendly units and destroy them. Then replace each with a random unit 1 energy cost higher. The setup that you're looking for is 3 or more units on board, with at least one of them being a Longbow Personnel Carrier. Longbow Personnel Carrier is a 3-cost unit. Fire Support Base is the only 4-cost unit in our deck. So when you destroy your Longbow this way, it always upgrades to Fire Support Base, which buffs your units. Even better, the other 2 units that Mirielle selects should be 1 energy units when possible. This deck has 7 2-energy units, and 3 of them are Vengeful Ally, who gets +1/+1 every time a friendly unit dies. And remember, Mirielle's killing 3 of your units on this turn. So for each ally that you pull, it will get buffed for the subsequent sacrifices. Don't force this combo because smart players have seen it before, but when you play it early, it's often too much to deal with. Long term, consider adding cards like Lancer Tank, Astal's Glaive, and Orbital Strike to increase your firepower and no longer be a minimum Marcolian. But those cards are relatively expensive today. Also important to note that in the coming weeks or months, Parallel's first expansion set, Planetfall, is going to get added to the game, and that will very likely add more low-cost options to consider as well.